It wasn't needing her looking out her window at my beautiful flowers, because there's no beautiful flowers. I just look at her. But anyway, when my mother-in-law passed away, my mother and I were really close. She was the first person I went to talk to, because I knew she'd understand, and I knew how much she loved me. And when one of our daughters that you would, when I say the sheriff here, had some problems, she was the first person I went to, because I knew she would understand. She would not judge anybody, whether they were right or whether they were wrong. She just would understand. So that's the kind of friend I knew. I didn't know anything about spying binoculars. I knew about them, but I didn't get that side of her. I heard that she could be rough, let's say, but I never knew that side of Linda. Every time we met, she'd hug my neck just like I was one of hers. And y'all just don't know. I appreciate that. Because she and I, well, we were about the only two on the block. She was retired, and I guess I just was sorry I never worked. But beside the point, she and I just had the best relationship for the age difference that the two of us had, and I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the time that she lived beside me. Well, I have turned over the gun. Well, I'm the floor. I know how to do that.
I'm not going to infect anything up here. So I'm going to share with you my most strongest memory of Aubrey. I'm not really sure. But I was, about this high. And it was winter time, and there was ice on the roads. And Daddy had tied a rope to the back of the log truck with no logs on it. And we would get our slickest boots and stand behind it and hold on to the rope. And he'd go real slow down the road because we couldn't ski or sled or anything like that. And I was always reading, and I guess I had fantasies about a different winter somewhere else. Well, one day we were out doing that, and I don't really know how the messenger got there, but Aubrey was in the ditch. And it was early. It was either a Saturday or a Sunday morning, because he had been having spiritual warfare. That wasn't the kind we usually talk about in this room. And he ended up on the wrong side of the spirits. And so Daddy got the log truck, and of course I tied the rope on the back and did my, Dodge County skiing down from the barn to the road. And he was in the ditch on the Jaybird Road. And a couple of people had tried to get him out, but it was ice and nobody could pull him out. And so Daddy and George was helping Daddy, and he was old enough to help him at that point. But Aubrey wasn't really much help at anything right then. And so I don't know why, but as a kid, he just, I'm not sure he liked kids. I never spent much time with him. But his spiritual warfare had taken the best of him, and he kept coming over and trying to hug me and kiss me on the cheek, and I was absolutely terrified. But anyway, Daddy got him out of the ditch, and that is my most vivid memory of Aubrey, because I think it was at an early age. But then for Linda, I have so many memories I couldn't even, begin to pick one. And this one's going to make me tear up. But I know Gary feels the same way. She was so good to Mom and Dad in those later years. And she was always bringing them something. And then when Daddy was gone, it was the same thing with George. She might have claimed George as her own because they were really close. Mm-hmm. And then, especially for our wedding, we had a really small wedding here. Daddy was sick. He was in the nursing home. And Gary's mom was sick, and we just thought it'd be easier to do it small. And she got up that day and went to the nursing home and got him dressed. And put him in a suit and brought him. And helped us with the sandwiches and stuff in the back. And he was able to be at the wedding because she did that. And then as soon as, lunch and everything was over, she picked him up and took him back to the nursing home. And because of her, he was able to be here, and we were able to focus on the other things that day.
since Cousin Ronnie couldn't be here, emailed what he'd like to say as well. I'm just going to read it to you. He writes a memory of Linda and Aubrey, two of the dearest people in my life, from Ronnie Kennedy, first cousin of the closest order. I am truly so very sorry that I am unable to make the trip to join all of you at this special memorial service, but these are a few of my thoughts and remembrances. The three of us, my dear sweetheart Linda and Aubrey, my almost brother, go back a long ways together. In my case, from birth until their passing, they, along with Mommy Evie and Granny, were already living in the old house at the corner of Suomi and Jaybird Springs Road, where I was born. As everyone else did at the time, you did whatever it took to live on a farm. Together you worked hard, daylight to dark, cared for the animals, helped each other, went fishing in the ponds, swimming in Sugar Creek or Jaybird Springs, and had little fun, which mostly required you to make your own fun, whatever that meant to you at the time. We also had a crank-up Victrola, and we would lay on the floor and listen to the same records over and over. Finally, a little after World War II, we got electricity and a radio, and then we could listen to the Grand Ole Opry. I didn't live at the old house full-time all year, as Mama and Daddy first lived in McRae, and then moved on to Waycross, and then to Jacksonville, Florida. But I always spent all of my summers on the farm, which back then began on the day after school closed in April, until it reopened after Labor Day. I would come up from Jacksonville on the Greyhound bus, pull the stop cord, and get off the wagon crossing over the railroad. This went on for every year for 10 years or more, until I went into the Air Force toward the end of the Korean War. So there was a lot of time spent with the whole family, particularly Aubrey, who I shared a bed with, and of course Linda, who I visited with Jacksonville, and on many other summer occasions when she came back to visit the farm. Aubrey and I were particularly bad about pranks. We did all sorts of nasty things, like canned farts.
Monster.
In Aunt Evie's Pond's cold cream jar.
Yes, they did.
Plus, one more notorious, particularly crude and tasteless prank was that when we put something very nasty in a shoebox and wrapped it neatly in a butcher paper, tied it up, and generally made it look like a parcel the postman could have dropped. We put it on the side of the road where it went through Suomi Branch. The two of us then climbed a nearby tree where we could see and hear everything that happened. Then waited for the first person to pass by, which was a wagon load of people. Needless to say, what happened next was deliriously funny to us. But not to the wagon load of people who fought vigorously over the box until it burst open and spilled its contents all.
Where George learned it.
They would have killed us if they'd have caught us. Sometime around the start of World War II, Linda and her older sister, Lucille, moved away from the farming and came to Jacksonville to live with us while they looked for a job, and soon went to work for Southern Bell Telephone Company, her lifelong career. So in many ways, we grew up together. While living with us, Linda met a neighbor, Arthur Lee Bowers Jr., who lived a few houses down from us on the same street. They had a few horses, and all of us had lots of fun and horseback rides together. After a while, Linda and Art married and ultimately moved to South Jacksonville and began their family. Even when I was in the Air Force and got a pass or leave, I would always try and visit to see Linda any chance I got. Later, after she married Martin, they had a beautiful lakefront place near Interlochen, Florida, and I was always a long ways away, working in Africa and the Middle East and Southeast Asia, California and Arizona, and all over the West. I would still look eagerly forward to any chance we got to visit. Linda was a good and caring person, plus a good sport with a great sense of making fun. But one time it wasn't about fun when she took out her temper on me. Aubrey and I were working in the barn when a huge rattlesnake was discovered. Uncle Leonard instructed me to run back to the house and retrieve old Long Tom, the 12-gauge shotgun, and some shells, all of which stored in Granny's bedroom. I grabbed the shotgun with no problem, but the shells were stored inside the bottom of Granny's big clock on her bedroom mantle. I didn't know it, but Linda had put Wanda, her first baby, on Granny's bed for a nap. But when I opened the clock door and reached in for shotgun shells, I somehow tripped a lever, and the clock started loudly bonging away. Wanda woke up screaming, and Linda came roaring in with the yard broom and commenced to beating me with every step. She got in so many licks that I never forgot and quietly tiptoed through the bedroom every time after. No matter the place at any family gathering, Linda and I always had a closeness that was very special. Together we shared joy, happiness, bright spots, and disappointments life brings. Her suffering over the last many years was nothing short of monumental. But no matter the faults you may have seen, you knew that at her heart she was truly a great person. Linda and my relationship was truly a sincere and lifelong one that endured all the way to the very end. I have been emotionally moved since the day of her passing, and in remembering that one of the very last words she uttered was my name. That will be emotionally embedded in my memory as long as I live. I miss them both, but I know the good Lord has taken them to a better place. If no one else would like to come forward, then after this we have refreshments in the back. We can join at lunch, and then at 1 o'clock we'll be planting azaleas over at the old house. So there's some chairs. Just grab a seat when you get there, and we got a couple